All right, now, y'all already know who I am, but in case you don't, I'm AG the Dad with Shit Talking Sundays, and this is Shit Talking with Sensible Chery. Today we're doing something a little bit different because Sensible Chery reached out to me and said, "Hey, I got something that's weighing heavy on my mind, and I need to get it off my chest a little bit and see what people think, and to see if other people are going through the same thing because." You know what? I'm not even going to get too far into it. I'm just going to let Sensible Chery have the floor, and I'm going to let her do her thing. Sensible Chery, what's going on?
So, yes, I'm heavy at heart, and I'm going to try to stay short, sweet, and civil. I'm supposed to be on vacation camping right now, but there's a situation that's been going on, and I want to shed some light on it. So hopefully I can hold it together. So Saturday, there's a whole bunch of backstory. I'm going to try to make the shortest version I can. Saturday, I became grandma again. And so I didn't realize I was a grandma until Monday again, because my daughter, who was in the hospital, called me from somebody's phone who was walking their dogs outside the hospital to tell me that the hospital kicked her out because they wouldn't let her smoke in the hospital. And so I said, "You can't get back in to see your baby?" And she rambled about, well, there's things that I'd have to do and this, that, and the other thing. Well, I was in the middle of going to an appointment. And so I'm like, well, let me make some phone calls. And so I got off the phone, and then an hour later, I reached out to the phone number that she had called from. And I said, "Hey, are you still with my daughter?" And they said, "No, I went into the hospital to see what was going on." And they informed me that she had checked herself out of the hospital the night before. So it's Monday that I get this phone call. Saturday was the baby was born, and then Sunday she checked herself out in the middle of the night. Well, needless to say, there's a long story. So anyone that's like, well, why didn't you know? And this, that, and the other thing, there's a way longer story. But needless to say, I get in touch with the social worker at the hospital who tells me to get in touch with DHS, with the state. We are in Oregon. And so I start making those phone calls. Well, I'm allowed to go in and see the baby on Monday. Cutest little thing. Well, he was born with fentanyl and amphetamines in his system and is being treated for syphilis. So if that gives you any kind of idea as to the situation with his biological mother, that's what we're dealing with to start. Well, I was able to see him on Monday for a visit because he's in the NICU. And so there's a hearing on Tuesday for him because of the situation. Well, at the hearing on the next day, which was Tuesday, is when I find out that my daughter didn't just check herself out. The situation was that she had been passed out with fentanyl on her person in the hospital with baby. They informed her that she couldn't smoke fentanyl in the hospital and told her pretty sure they gave her an option of a plethora of things that they could have legally done for her. She refused and wanted to self-medicate. So she checked herself out of the hospital. And at the point that she checked herself out of the hospital, she then, in gown with IV hanging out of her arm, walked around to the emergency room and continued to try to get fentanyl. So they still declined that for her. And so there was supposed to be a meeting with her. I got to visit baby on Tuesday again. Now that I know he has syphilis, because I did not know he had syphilis or potentially had syphilis prior to that. It was that he had breathing issues and all these other things, and a feeding tube. And I was expecting a whole lot worse than what I saw when I went in. And so visually, he looks like a happy, healthy baby. You wouldn't know all the other things by just looking at him. And so then Wednesday, I get to visit him, but Wednesday is the day that I was supposed to be camping. And so I send family on their way ahead of me. And I said, I need to go visit baby and I will check in later. Well, I did that, got to visit, and then went camping. I'm like, I got to see the baby on Wednesday. I will come back, maybe through the course of the weekend. We were supposed to be gone Wednesday through Monday kind of thing. And like, I will come back then. Well, something was on my heart to go down Friday. So I came down Friday, and then on Friday, there's a lot of other stuff going on with mixed messaging between the state and the hospital and other players involved. And so I wanted some clarification. And so the caseworker that has my grandson right now, we got to the point where she's like, do you want to speak with my supervisor? And I'm like, yes, I would love to do that. I want to go, when would be a good time? And she said 2:00. And so I was like, great. I'm like, I will be there. She's like, oh, you're coming in. I'm like, yes, I'm coming in. I'm going to visit my grandson. And then I will come into the meeting with you guys at 2:00. So they had a meeting room available. I think the meeting went great. Some of the concerns I had with just miscommunications were lifted. It seems like there's a lot of red tape and all those kinds of things. And meeting went well. And just as I'm getting ready to end it, she's like, oh, I need to tell you one more thing that I need my supervisor to stay in for. And that is, we have a community resource, because I want to be grandma. I don't want to be mom. And so they have a community resource person that's it's like the equivalent of a foster parent who is really willing to take him when he gets out of the hospital. And they said, as soon as that person is listed, family members, biological, can no longer go in the hospital. Needless to say, that threw me through a little bit of a loop. I'm like, why can I not go see my grandson? I'm the only one biologically related to him who's been able to see him Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, as his own mother basically abandoned him in the hospital. And now I can't go see him when a complete stranger is involved. So they said, well, it was supposed to be effective Friday, but we got extended through the weekend because the community resource person wasn't going to be able to pick him up, even if and that's not an option yet, but they wouldn't be able to come into the hospital until today. And so I'm like, okay. So then I'm like, this, I know this is happening. I'll start reaching out to some people come Tuesday to see if they can continue the exception and possibly maybe get me in there, because I am biological grandmom, sorry, and see what's going on. And so I call I ended up going back to the hospital to see him, because now, instead of thinking I might be able to see him again. It's just like, this could be the last time. I mean, I've only got, because I was planning on enjoying the rest of my vacation until Monday. And so this could be the last time I see him before I come back Monday. And most likely then it won't be until Tuesday. So I go on vacation back up into the woods, had a great day Saturday, and then this morning at 5:30, it's Sunday, I'm like, I need to go down because there's a chance I won't be able to see him tomorrow. I can't see him tomorrow with the way things are right in place. So I want to go down and see him because that restriction wasn't supposed to be in place until the community resource person actually came into the hospital. That person has not been in the hospital yet. And so I went down this morning to see grandson and was informed, oh, no, it's in effect today, once the community resource, because that's the day they were supposed to come in. I'm like, I was told that there was an extension just until the community resource person came into the hospital. And I've been in touch with the community resource person who was even willing to wait to come into the hospital until Monday if it would ensure that I would be able to visit. And also, sidebar, the people who adopted my first two grandkids who have half siblings of my new grandson, that they would be able to come in and visit through today. Well, they said no. Hospital policy is that no, and it's because they've had issues in the past. I get it. My daughter is probably one of the reasons that they needed a policy like that people weren't reasonable. And so once a community resource / foster person is involved, I can understand why a policy like that is in place. But I am not that person. It is her. And so I am biological grandma. And the idea that I can't go see him anymore and now a complete stranger can see him is frustrating for me. And so I started making phone calls to DHS. It is Sunday. It's a holiday weekend. I get that we are pretty much slim to none. But now the hospital, who DHS is telling me it's their policy that we can't do anything about, it's them that have this rule in place. If it was on us, we wouldn't have a problem at all. Well, I get into the hospital and the hospital's like, no, DHS just needs to tell us that this was approved through today and it would be fine. So I can't get in touch with anybody. I drove an hour and a half for the second time on vacation to come see my grandson, and I can't see him. So I'm heading back for the rest of my vacation. But in the meantime, I had called the emergency, it was basically the abuse hotline, to their non-emergency, to see if I could talk to somebody that could get to an on-call person, an on-call caseworker that might be able to get in touch with the caseworkers, where the hospital is telling me it is only going to take a phone call from someone from the state to allow me to see my grandson for possibly the last time until who knows when, because I won't have visitations with him necessarily until he gets out of the hospital and once he's with the community resource person. Apparently I can see him whenever I want, but as long as he's in the hospital, they don't allow that because that's their policy. Well, I get a call back and they reached out to the on-call caseworkers who felt this was not emergency enough. This is an emergency enough to me, the only biological person who has had any contact with this child since mom left him. So yes, I am thinking this is an emergency on my part, but totally understanding it's not an emergency with all of the things that I can only imagine that they deal with on their part, but aren't willing to disrupt somebody else's weekend on a holiday weekend to possibly get one phone call made in order for me to be able to see my grandson for possibly till who knows when. So that's where we're at. And I will be continuing to make phone calls come Tuesday, if not tomorrow, when I come back from vacation again. And I am absolutely frustrated. I just can't. I am giving grace. I'm trying to have patience. I know God has this because there are so many things that have proven to me that he is in this. And this is another thing I'm like, I'm going to shed light. If there's anything from anybody who's been watching this podcast knows, is I will continue to shed light on things that are not in the best interest of our children. And so this is a new layer on top of all of the other things, of if we are truly doing what is in the best interest of our children, explain to me how reunification with someone who the mother of is saying that could be a potential threat to this child. This mother has already lost two children. This is not a, and it's like, oh, well, a 30-day stabilization is all we need to let there be visitations. And I'm like, there should be visitations. I don't know. You would think maybe being passed out in the hospital with fentanyl on your person would be enough to say, hey, I don't think that person can make good judgment. And maybe we shouldn't let that person have visitations with an innocent newborn baby who has already been brought into this world with fentanyl and amphetamines in their system and possibly syphilis, who has had a spinal tap to see if it's gone through his blood or his brain if he has it. So there is so much more to this story, but that is the shortest version I could come up with, and that is what I wanted to speak on. There will be continued updates on this within reason. There will be updates on school as it's starting, but I am overwhelmed. I know God has this, but this is just unbelievable. We talk about the best interest of our children. You explain to me how allowing parents that are actively using that, well, it's okay for them to be actively using and visiting their children because that's all they've ever known. That's what our state says. Oregon's like, well, it's all they've ever known. He's not known this. He's 8 days old. So it is not his norm. And even if it was his norm, you should have to be clean in order to be able to see your children, to the point where apparently there's stories of it's such a thing that they've had people overdose in the visitation center visiting their children. So forgive me for my passion and frustration with this, but this is broken. Oh, and this whole Measure 110 thing that we have, where we've legalized controlled substances because we think that's okay, has contributed to the uprise of fentanyl babies that they're seeing in the hospital, which they've graciously told me. I'm like, how often are you dealing this? Well, they're like, unfortunately, in this area, it's more prevalent than in a lot of other areas. And I'm like, well, that probably has something to do with our lovely Measure 110, where we think it was really a good idea to legalize portions of jobs because we're going to give them all the resources they need in order to get clean. We are not. This is broken. We are impacting families and children, and unnecessarily so, and it has to stop. And I'll tell you this, I will continue to be a voice, and I am not going to shut up about it until we start making decisions that are in the best interest of our children. So
Absolutely.
that's where we are at right now.
I agree with everything that you said, that the system is broken. Um, I, I think a very easy solution for this um, overstressed system is if there is a biological family member that wishes to step up, a quick little um, in-person interview and quick little background check. We are in a technologically advanced society now that I would think that it's pretty easy to just say, okay, let's run your name and social and see what your background looks like, and do a soft background
Well,
check.
and let me step in there, because we can't say that if I wanted to step in right now and say I am going to take him, they would have made me the priority. They would have also made the priority the people that adopted my first two grandchildren. The dynamic here is I want to be grandma, and I want to be able to participate, but I don't want to be mom. And if there's one thing I know about this state, the second that I take him, then he goes to the bottom of the list. It's not a priority. They know he's safe. And so it's just like, that's it. Well, he's with grandma. Well, there's a lot of stuff that I know I am supposed to do, and I do not feel that I need to take this on just yet. But trust me, I'm getting close. If I need to pull grandma rank, I will. But the idea that a foster parent community person comes in that has no biological relation, has more priority over than I do right now, that I have to stop my visits because he's in the NICU. That's what's frustrating for me. And I've already had conversations with that person, and they seem like, I haven't met them yet. They don't know my story, I don't know their story, but they seem reasonable. It seems like all the players here seem reasonable, but I'm running up against walls where it's just like, oh no,
Policy.
hospital policy, we need to talk to
Mhm.
state. State's like, oh no, hospital policy. Don't lie to me. Give me a straight answer. If for some reason you think it's in the best interest of my grandson for me not to have any bond with him when he's been in the NICU, please explain that to me and just tell me. Don't give me this runaround and start pointing fingers at each other and saying, oh, well, no, it's their policy or it's this. I want to see the policy. I want to know who's in authority to make the decision, and I want to talk to them. And if they believe after talking to me that I shouldn't have any contact, if I was the crazy person that they have that policy in place, there were several opportunities for me to storm the NICU instead of patiently waiting outside like a blubbering idiot because I'm crying because I can't
Right.
see my grandson after I drove an hour and a half because I thought I had one more day before I was
Right.
going to have to drive. It would be totally different. But
Right. Right.
I know there's people that go, well, just step up. It's like, it's bigger than that. Like, this shouldn't be the go-to answer. You shouldn't have to. Not saying that I won't. It could happen, but like, there's so much more to this. We don't have a problem with people destroying others people's lives and all of and at the expense of our children. And I just don't understand how you can let grandma in for like what he's like 4 of the days that he's been born out of 8, and all of a sudden on the 8th day, well, a stranger's coming in, so we better knock grandma off the list because now we've
Mm.
got strangers in here. It's just I just can't. I just can't.
Right. No, the point I was trying to make is once they establish that you are sane and not, I guess, for the rules that they have in place, that you don't have any bad background, then you should have by all means all the rights, because the rights have been stripped. Kind of like when a person passes away, the next of kin has all the rights and control over where your body goes. So
Right.
in this instance, kind of the same thing. If the biological father is nowhere to be found, well, then the next of kin would be the grandmother on either side, and then so on and so forth. But establishing that should be something that be a priority right away instead of spending money and resources on a surrogate if a biological parent is willing to walk in. But on their defense, from what I'm hearing, is the fact that you didn't want to be the main parent.
Right.
I and I understand, because nobody knows what somebody is, how much they have in as far as responsibility is concerned. So to
Right.
force those issues on anybody, I get it. So that's not even the point. It's the point of the way the system is being
Right.
handled when it comes to them. But you know what they always say: when there's something wrong going on, follow the money.
Right. Oh,
You
I'll
know,
be following it, that's for sure. I will be, because this is ridiculous. And it's just, I've heard comments about with the DHS system, that it's just like, oh, it's in the best interest of the child up and to the legal or not legal side of it. And so they're going to do anything from the legal side. So like, reunification is their priority plan. And the idea that they would consider reunifying, considering the circumstances, if this was the first go round, I could have a little bit more grace, but we're talking third child, first two already adopted out. Obviously, nothing has changed since then. It's actually gotten worse because my first grandson, most of the pregnancy, okay. It wasn't until maybe the end where there was an issue. My other grandchild, it was on and off throughout the whole pregnancy. And that grandchild is dealing with developmental issue, not develop, well, developmental delays. I shouldn't say, just some delays. And so now this one, who's been full on fentanyl and amphetamines since day one, and now has this added syphilis side of things, that should be enough. Like, who should be the next person? And as far as, so you take my daughter into consideration, because of course I'm getting information as best I can, and my daughter has a 20-page rap sheet. So when we talk about what's the biological dad, which we don't know for sure, it's just word of mouth at this point. Biological dad's rap sheet is like 87 pages. So in that respect, there's nobody on that side that I'm seeing. And I'll tell you this much: if somebody pops up out of his family, I sure as hell hope that they give a DNA test to the baby before they start letting other people who potentially have any say with this child's life involved in here. Like I said, I was the only one in that hearing at 9 a.m. on Tuesday for him. The only one. Nobody else was there. And so, yes, he's my grandson, and I'm vested, and I will fight for him. And it's just, it is dumb. The deeper that I get into this state, the more frustrated that I become, that all these claims of the best interest of children and how resilient they are, and yet they're the ones that are suffering. What did he do to deserve to be brought into this world and have to deal with this? And then I know there's people out there, you can go ahead and judge all you want. Well, then you should take them. Well, you know what? If you know the dynamic with my daughter, and if you've never gone to sleep at night wondering if you would wake up in the morning, please step in my shoes for the last 31 years before you start trying to judge why I'm making the decisions I am making.
Absolutely. Nobody understands until you walk in somebody else's shoes. My question, right? At what age do you think it's no longer the parents' responsibility to be responsible for their children? Meaning, like, at what age do you think your child should be before you're no longer responsible for her actions? Because,
right. Well, that ship, you asked me, that ship sailed a long time ago. I went through the years of, well, what could I have done? What should I have done? I had poor experiences in relationships. It's the nature versus nurture. What if I would have given her up when I was 17 when I had her? I had no business having a child at 17. And it's just like, so would her life have been any better if I gave her up for adoption? Or is it just, she just that child that no matter what she could have had the best life and she would have still turned out? The shoulda, coulda, would-haves, we will never know. And you can't guilt yourself for any of that. Like, yes, we all make decisions that we could have done differently, we should have done differently, but you can't live your life blaming everybody else for what you're going through. At some point, you are making your own decisions. And I'm sorry, with the decades now of drug use that she's had, I never gave her drugs. I never forced any of that on her. Those were choices that she made, regardless if she, had some issue because we had moved cross country when she was younger. And if that was hard on her and she had coping skills and all these other things, if there was issues there, I did not make that choice for her to use for the first time. That was a choice she made on her own at a very young age. And trust me and my mother and a bunch of other people have tried time and time. This state has been involved in trying to help her repeatedly. She graduated the mom's program 3 times. And I'm sorry, by the 3rd time, I'm like, it's not a graduation anymore. I'm not going to sit up there and applaud and be, oh my gosh, look what you've accomplished, because you should have been able to get straight the first time. And this is the part of where our system is so broken in this state, that they give resources and then they pull them all away, or they don't have them at all, which is what we're dealing with right now. Even the turnover in the state, like the caseworker I have, I think her current supervisor, it was the last day and she's getting a new one. And there's, she's the caseworker for like this time. There's going to be another caseworker, the doctors that involve. He had 2 doctors the first day. He's got another doctor now until Tuesday. Then he'll have a 3rd one. All these players are switching in and out. He's a case number. He's my grandson.
Right. Yeah. It's the system needs a complete overhaul. Just kind of like when they said defund the police, I don't think that that's the solution either.
No.
But I do think that a
Reform.
revamping and yes, reform and re-educating
Yes.
to evolve with the times.
Hmm.
Technology has evolved, so everything has changed. Crime has changed. Medical treatments have changed. Educational policies and systems have changed. The only thing that hasn't changed is the police system and the social working system. Yeah, they create little like you said, graduate the mothers program, but the mothers program, eh, I think needs to be a little
Well,
bit more
and
fine tuned
even
for the
the
individual.
other, right. And the other thing on that, like when you talk about, the things that haven't changed, like our education system or our police department where they've had issues, the problem is they keep pulling money away. Like it's like even with this measure 110, who got hit with legalizing the drugs that we decided that we want to decriminalize. We decriminalized drugs. Where did we take that money away from? We took it away from the police and we took it away from our schools. And now look at us. No. Like no.
Yeah, I
So
mean it's
I've really got to go. I wanted to we will be talking again. But I wanted to get that off my chest. Like I said, I've been an emotional roller coaster. I've been pretty stable right now, but I was a blubbering idiot in the hospital and at church, and um I go back and forth. But like I said, I've been told several times, including with people that have dealt with me since he was born, that I am a force. That's not going to stop.
right.
I will continue to be a force until somebody listens. Because please explain to me how it makes any sense that you could pull the only bond. I have the video of him when I was holding him, trying to get him to smile, and he had a little quiver in his lips, and he was trying to smile for grandma, even though he was doped up on morphine, because now they have to give him for the withdrawals. And then at the same time, I was trying to get him to open his eyes, and I'm like, let grandma see your peepers. And he was trying so hard. He
Mhm.
was trying so hard just to open his little eyes to see the voice he recognized. Talk to
Mhm.
him.
Every
And
day.
now
Yeah.
they are taking that voice away. So no, I will not stop.
Yep. We need more people passionate like yourself when it comes to children's voices. I appreciate your time. I know that
Thank
you
you.
know, you're busy. Yes, we are definitely going to get back and talk more about this in the upcoming episodes and shows. Um, um, Anybody else out there who knows anything about the loss of losing a child due into the system or anything like that, please reach out to me. Um, AG
Oh, and
the dad.
if anybody has any phone numbers, I realize that your podcast is based out of California, but if there is anybody in Oregon that hears this and has phone numbers of people in authority that would want to help in any capacity, whether it be with DHS, the judges, the courts, Asante, because any of it, um, please let me know, because I would be happy to have a conversation with them.
Yes, everybody's always welcome to come on the show. AG the dad at Shit Talking Sundays. Yes, take care, Sensible Chery, and try to enjoy the rest of your vacation if you can. I know it's going to be hard, but we like to say that our loved ones are in great hands, but we all know that the system is flawed. We just got to hope that the where your grandson is at currently, the people that are taking care of him love him like the
Well, and I will chime in one thing. All of the charge nurses, regular nurses, the entire staff in the hospital have been awesome. And so they know I've been coming in and out of my vacation in the woods, and they have truly been incredible. And I know that they're doing everything in their power for him. And I know that if they could be a voice for me, they would. So, in regards to the staff, I really do need to give kudos to them, because I know they're taking care of him.
the only messed up thing is I know if they want to say something they can't because for
Right.
fear of retaliation. But that's a whole nother story, because trust
I
me, I'll
know.
go through that too.
I know.
But
All
get back
right.
to education. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Be blessed. And remember, everybody, stand up for what you believe in when it comes to these children. And if you don't want to, get out of the way. We will. All right.
Right.
I'm AG the dad. That's Sensible Chery. Be blessed, everybody. We're out. Peace.
Sunday morning drama is calling up my mama. Drama.